What happens when the kid everyone calls too slow becomes the one no one can catch? We live in a world obsessed with loudness. The loudest voice, the flashiest moves, the most aggressive competitors. But what if I told you that sometimes the quietest person in the room is actually the most dangerous? Welcome back to Tales of Wonder. If you enjoy stories about underdogs, unexpected victories, and life lessons that hit harder than a punch to the gut, smash that subscribe button and stick around. You won't regret it. Now let's begin today's story, because what you're about to hear will completely change how you view strength, speed, and the power of staying silent. Marcus Chun had mastered the art of being invisible. At Jefferson High School, a sprawling brick institution in suburban Connecticut where social hierarchies were as rigid as the dress code, Marcus moved through hallways like water flowing around stones, silent, adaptable, leaving no trace. He was 17, slight in build, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes that seemed to observe everything while revealing nothing. His clothing choices screamed, "Please don't notice me." Gray hoodies, dark jeans, worn sneakers that had seen better days. But invisibility, Marcus had learned, was both a shield and a target. The cafeteria at Jefferson High was an ecosystem of its own. The popular kids claimed the center tables like territorial lions. The drama club huddled near the windows, their laughter theatrical and practiced. The gamers occupied the corner, controllers and conversations about raids blending into white noise. And then there was Marcus, who typically ate alone at a small table near the emergency exit, a strategic location that allowed for quick escapes when necessary. It was a Tuesday in late September when the ecosystem shifted. Tyler Brennan, 6'2", broad-shouldered, with the kind of confident swagger that came from being captain of the track team and dating the homecoming queen, had noticed Marcus. And in high school, being noticed by someone like Tyler was rarely a good thing. "Hey, Chun." Tyler's voice boomed across the cafeteria, causing heads to turn like sunflowers following the sun. "I heard you joined the track team." "That true." Marcus looked up from his book, a worn copy of The Tao of Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee, and met Tyler's gaze with the calm neutrality of someone who had learned long ago that reactions were weapons you handed to your enemies. "I did," Marcus replied simply, his voice barely above conversational volume. The cafeteria had gone quiet, that peculiar hush that descends when teenage drama promises entertainment. Tyler sauntered over, his entourage of athletes following like pilot fish trailing a shark. "You?" Tyler laughed, the sound sharp and theatrical. "Dude, you can barely walk without tripping. What are you going to do on the track? Take a leisurely stroll. Maybe stop and meditate at the finish line." His friends erupted in laughter, the kind of practiced, performative mirth that echoed off the cafeteria walls. Tyler picked up Marcus's book, examining it with exaggerated confusion. "Be water, my friend," Tyler read in a mocking accent, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "What kind of hippie nonsense is this? You trying to become a puddle, Chun? Because that's about your speed, slow, spreading nowhere, totally useless." Marcus remained seated, his expression unchanged. This wasn't new. The mocking, the casual cruelty, the way bullies needed an audience to feel powerful. He'd experienced it all before in different schools, different cities, different iterations of the same tired script. "Water takes the shape of its container," Marcus said quietly, closing his book. "It's adaptable, formless. You can't grasp it, can't hurt it, can't stop it." Tyler snorted. "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You know what beats water? A bucket. You know what else beats water? Literally anything solid." He tossed the book back onto the table with a dismissive thud. "Just like I'm going to beat you at Friday's meet. Coach put you in the 400 meter, right? Same as me." "He did," Marcus confirmed. "Perfect." Tyler's grin was predatory. "I'll lap you twice. Maybe 3 times if you're slow as you look. Hope you're ready to be humiliated in front of the whole school, puddle boy." As Tyler and his crew walked away, their laughter fading into the cafeteria's ambient noise, Marcus's friend Jamie slid into the seat across from him. Jamie was one of the few people at Jefferson High who had bothered to look past Marcus's quiet exterior, a fellow outsider who understood the language of the overlooked. "Why'd you join track?" Jamie asked, genuine confusion in their voice. You hate attention. This is like the opposite of your whole vibe. Marcus reopened his book, his finger tracing the words he'd read 100 times before. Bruce Lee said to be like water, shapeless, formless. But water isn't just adaptable. It's also relentless. It wears down mountains. It finds every crack, every weakness. He looked up, and for the first time, there was something almost like a smile at the corner of his mouth. Sometimes you have to flow into the spaces people don't expect. Jamie raised an eyebrow. That's very poetic and also completely doesn't answer my question. Can you even run fast? Define fast, Marcus replied, which was, Jamie reflected, the most Marcus answer possible. The truth was, nobody at Jefferson High knew anything about Marcus Chen's past. He transferred in 3 months ago, mid-semester, which was unusual enough to spark gossip that quickly fizzled when Marcus proved to be aggressively uninteresting. No drama, no social media presence, no participation in the various tribal rituals that defined high school existence. What they didn't know, what Marcus had carefully ensured they didn't know, was that before Connecticut, he'd lived in 7 different cities across 3 countries. His father was a martial arts instructor who had studied under some of the most respected masters in Southeast Asia. His mother was a former Olympic alternate in track and field for Taiwan. And Marcus himself had spent his childhood in a unique fusion of disciplines that his parents called functional movement philosophy. He'd never competed formally. His parents believed competition bred ego, and ego was the opposite of the formless, adaptable mindset they wanted to instill. But he trained. Oh, had he trained? Every morning before school. Meditation, form work, breathing exercises. After school, sprint intervals, endurance runs, and agility drills that looked more like dance than athletics. His father taught him that speed wasn't about force. It was about efficiency, about eliminating wasted movement, about becoming so relaxed that your body responded before your mind could interfere. Be water, his father would say, watching Marcus flow through movement patterns. Water doesn't force its way through obstacles. It finds the path of least resistance and moves with such fluidity that by the time you realize it's dangerous, you're already drowning. Marcus had kept all of this hidden at Jefferson High because he'd learned a painful lesson at his previous school. Being exceptional made you a target. Better to be invisible, to move through life like water, through fingers, present but impossible to grasp, until Tyler Brennan had made invisibility impossible. The rest of the week unfolded like a slow-motion train wreck that Marcus could see coming but couldn't or wouldn't stop. Tyler's mockery evolved from casual cafeteria comedy to a full-scale campaign. Memes appeared on social media, showing a puddle with Marcus's face photoshopped onto it. Captions reading, "World's slowest runner." A fake GoFundMe circulated, claiming to raise money for Marcus Chen's race against the turtle. The turtle is winning. During practice, Coach Morrison, a former college athlete with a whistle permanently attached to his neck and a belief that running solved all of life's problems, separated the 400-meter runners into groups based on their preliminary times. Tyler ran his in 52 seconds, a respectable time that placed him solidly in the competitive range. He finished with barely elevated breathing, flexing for a group of admirers who had gathered to watch practice. When Marcus's turn came, Tyler made a show of pulling out his phone. "Gotta record this for posterity," he announced. The day Jefferson High's track team added dead weight. Marcus approached the starting line with the same calm neutrality he brought to everything. He wore plain gray athletic shorts and a faded t-shirt. His posture relaxed to the point of looking almost bored. "On your mark," Coach Morrison called. Marcus settled into a starting position that looked wrong to anyone with track experience. His stance was too narrow, his weight distribution peculiar, his hands positioned in a way that seemed more martial arts than athletics. "Get set." The air horn blared, and Marcus ran moderately. Not slow exactly, but not fast either. He completed the 400 meters in a respectable but unremarkable 61 seconds, finishing without apparent strain, but also without any indication of particular talent. Tyler's laughter could be heard across the track. 61 seconds. My grandma could beat that. Coach, seriously, why is this kid even on the team? Coach Morrison frowned, studying Marcus with the analytical eye of someone who had spent 30 years evaluating athletic potential. Something about the run felt off, but he couldn't quite identify what. The form was unusual, the breathing pattern strange, the pacing inconsistent with typical novice runners. But the time was mediocre enough to align with expectations. Chun, the coach, called. That your best? For today, Marcus replied, which was technically true and also completely misleading. As practice ended, Tyler cornered Marcus near the equipment shed, his voice low enough that the coach couldn't hear, but loud enough for the lingering teammates to catch every word. Friday's meet is against Westbrook Prep, Tyler said, his face inches from Marcus's. They're bringing scouts, college recruiters, people who actually matter. And you're going to embarrass our entire school with your pathetic puddle speed. He poked Marcus's chest with one finger. Do us all a favor and fake an injury. Say you twisted your ankle. Nobody wants to watch you fail. Marcus looked at the finger pressing against his sternum, then up at Tyler's face, his expression as calm as a still pond before a stone hits the surface. I'll be there Friday, Marcus said quietly. And I'll run. Yeah. Tyler's voice dripped with challenge. Tell you what, Chun, when I beat you, and I will absolutely destroy you, you quit the team. You stop pretending you're an athlete and go back to being invisible. Deal. The crowd had grown, smartphones out, recording what had become the week's best drama. Marcus was aware of the cameras, the eyes, the weight of expectation. In martial arts, his father had taught him, there's a concept called zanshin, a state of relaxed alertness where you're aware of everything but attached to nothing. And when I win? Marcus asked, his voice still soft, but carrying a quality that made several people lean in to hear better. Tyler's laugh was harsh. You won't. But sure, fantasy time. If by some miracle you beat me, I'll... He paused, clearly not having expected Marcus to counter. I'll do whatever you want. Public apology, money, whatever. Name it. When I win, Marcus said, and there was something in his tone now, something that made Tyler's smirk falter for just a fraction of a second. You learn what it means to be water. Is that a threat, Puddle Boy? It's a promise, Marcus replied. See you Friday. The next 2 days were a masterclass in psychological warfare, though only one side seemed aware they were in a battle. Tyler's confidence swelled to theatrical proportions. He held court in the cafeteria, describing in elaborate detail how he would humiliate Marcus at the meet. His 400-meter time in practice sessions dropped to 51 seconds, then 50 flats, fast enough to draw approving nods from Coach Morrison. Meanwhile, Marcus continued his pattern of deliberate mediocrity. He ran practice intervals at moderate speed, never pushing, never revealing anything beyond basic competence. He ate lunch alone, read his Bruce Lee book, and responded to the escalating mockery with the emotional response of a stone in a river. But Jamie noticed something others missed. You're doing it on purpose, Jamie said Thursday after practice, catching Marcus as he headed toward the bike racks. The mediocre running. The Zen thing. You're playing some kind of game. Marcus secured his backpack, his movements precise and economical. Bruce Lee said that to understand fighting, you need to understand that you're not fighting your opponent. You're fighting their expectation of you. Once they've decided who you are, they stop seeing who you actually are. That's great philosophy, Jamie replied, but Tyler's going to crush you if you run like you've been running. He's actually good, Marcus. Like legitimately talented. I know, Marcus said simply. That's what makes it interesting. Friday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that made outdoor track meets feel like communal celebrations. The bleachers at Jefferson High filled with students, parents, and scattered scouts holding clipboards and stopwatches. Westbrook Prep had brought a formidable team, their athletes warming up with the practiced efficiency of a competitive program. Tyler held court near the starting line, surrounded by teammates and admirers, his confidence radiating like heat from asphalt. He'd changed his pre-race routine, adding elaborate stretches clearly designed for maximum visual impact. Marcus arrived quietly, wearing the same plain athletic gear he'd worn all week. He found a spot away from the crowds, sat cross-legged on the grass, and closed his eyes. To observers, he looked like he was meditating or perhaps napping. But inside his mind, Marcus was doing something his father called simulation, mentally rehearsing the race not as a competition, but as a movement pattern to be executed with precision. Runners for the 400-meter dash report to staging. The announcer's voice crackled over the loudspeaker. The moment felt charged with expectation. The bleachers buzzed with conversation, smartphones raised and ready. Tyler's entourage had claimed prime viewing positions, some holding signs that read Brennan Speed Demon and RIP Puddle Boy. Coach Morrison gathered the runners, 4 from Jefferson, 4 from Westbrook. Tyler took lane 4, the position typically reserved for the fastest-seated runner. Marcus drew lane 7 on the outside. As they approached the starting blocks, Tyler leaned toward Marcus. Last chance to fake that injury. Chun, save yourself the embarrassment. Marcus's response was to close his eyes and take a single, deep breath. To anyone watching, it looked like fear or resignation. But in that breath, Marcus was doing what his father had taught him, centering his awareness, releasing tension, becoming water. Runners, take your marks. The crowd quieted, hundreds of eyes focused on the starting line. Tyler settled into a picture-perfect starting stance, his form textbook, his body coiled like a spring ready to explode. Marcus's stance remained unconventional, narrow, loose, his body weight distributed in a way that seemed to defy athletic convention. Get set. The silence became absolute. Even the wind seemed to pause. The starting pistol cracked, and Marcus' chin exploded. There's a phenomenon in martial arts called explosive relaxation, the ability to go from complete calm to maximum output in a fraction of a second. It looks supernatural to observers because the human brain expects acceleration to be gradual, for power to be preceded by tension. Marcus's first 3 steps covered more ground than Tyler's 5. His form was unlike anything in conventional track. His body seemed to float, his legs cycling with a frequency that looked more like video played at 1.5x speed than normal human movement. There was no wasted motion, no tension in his shoulders, no strain in his face. He looked like water flowing downhill, inevitable and effortless. By the first turn, Marcus had already pulled even with Tyler. The crowd's noise shifted from ambient buzz to shocked exclamation. Coach Morrison stood up from his seat, whistle falling from his mouth. The Westbrook runners glanced sideways, their concentration breaking as the supposedly weak runner from Jefferson surged past them with impossible fluidity. Tyler's eyes widened in shock, his perfect form fragmenting as he tried to accelerate, to match this impossible speed. But trying to keep pace with Marcus was like trying to grab water. The harder you grasped, the faster it slipped away. Entering the backstretch, Marcus was 3 meters ahead and pulling away. His breathing remained controlled, his expression calm, his body moving with the effortless efficiency of someone doing something so familiar it required no thought. This wasn't running in the way Tyler understood running. This was movement as philosophy, speed as meditation, athletics as art. Tyler was fast, genuinely talented. His 50-second 400 meters was respectable by any standard. But Marcus existed in a different category entirely, a place where years of dedicated, invisible training merged with genetic gifts and psychological mastery. The final turn. Marcus was now 5 meters ahead, the gap widening with each stride. The crowd had gone from shock to euphoric, their noise a wall of sound that Marcus barely registered. He was inside the movement now, his consciousness dissolved into pure execution, his body a demonstration of what his father had always told him was possible when you stopped fighting yourself. Tyler was in second place, his breathing ragged, his form deteriorating as exhaustion and disbelief waged war with his ego. He could see Marcus ahead, could see the impossible distance between them, and in that moment, he understood that he had never actually been in a race at all. He'd been in a lesson, and Marcus was the teacher. Marcus crossed the finish line, looking like he'd just completed a light jog. No heavy breathing, no hands-on-knees exhaustion, no victory pose. He simply stopped, walked a few steps, and checked the scoreboard with the same mild interest someone might give a weather report. The time read 47.2 seconds. The bleachers erupted. Coach Morrison's clipboard clattered to the ground. Even the Westbrook athletes stopped their own races to stare at the scoreboard, convinced it must be a malfunction. Tyler crossed the finish line 6 seconds later, his personal best of 50 seconds rendered meaningless by context. He bent over, hands on knees, gasping for air, his mind unable to process what had just happened. 6 seconds might not sound like much, but in a 400-meter dash, it represented a chasm of ability so vast that bridging it seemed impossible. Jamie was the first to reach Marcus, their face a mixture of shock and vindication. "You absolute lunatic. Where did that come from?" Marcus shrugged, his expression unchanged. "I've been training my whole life. Just never had a reason to show it." "A reason?" Jamie gestured at the scoreboard, the crowd, the dozens of phones recording the aftermath. "What was this?" "A lesson," Marcus replied. He turned to face Tyler, who had straightened up, his face cycling through confusion, anger, and something that might have been the first glimmer of understanding. Marcus walked over slowly, his movements still carrying that water-like quality, unhurried but purposeful. "You wanted to know what be water means," Marcus said quietly, his voice calm enough that only Tyler and a few nearby people could hear. "Water doesn't announce itself. It doesn't flex or pose or need validation. It's formless, so you can't predict it. It adapts, so you can't trap it. And when it moves, it's not about force. It's about removing everything that's unnecessary until only efficiency remains." Tyler's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. You've been sandbagging all week, making everyone think you were slow. "I was showing you what you expected to see," Marcus corrected gently. "You decided I was weak, so you saw weakness. Your ego needed an easy victory, so you created a story where that was possible. But the whole time, you were fighting your own expectations, not me." "That's—" Tyler struggled for words. "That's manipulative." "No," Marcus replied, and there was something almost sad in his voice. "It's adaptive. You try to humiliate me, to make yourself feel powerful by making me feel small. I just let you believe your own story until the moment when reality became unavoidable." He paused, then added, "Being water doesn't mean being passive. It means being so flexible that when someone throws a punch, you've already float around it. And sometimes, the punch they throw is at their own reflection." Coach Morrison approached, his face flushed with excitement and a dozen questions. "Chun, where did you learn to run like that? Your form is completely unorthodox, but it's—" He trailed off, searching for words. "It's the most efficient stride pattern I've seen in 30 years of coaching." "Who trained you?" "My parents," Marcus said simply. "They taught me that speed isn't about how hard you push. It's about how completely you let go." The remainder of the meet passed in a blur of congratulations, confused questions, and a sudden reversal of social standing that Marcus found deeply uncomfortable. People who had ignored him for months suddenly wanted to know his training routine, his diet, his secrets. The same smartphones that had recorded Tyler's mockery now capture Marcus's reluctant explanations, his soft-spoken philosophy, his insistence that the run wasn't about beating anyone. It was about demonstrating a principle. Tyler disappeared shortly after the race, his entourage scattering like leaves in wind. The signs celebrating his dominance were quickly hidden. The memes about Puddle Boy, rapidly deleted as social media performed its characteristic pivot from mockery to celebration. But something interesting happened in the days following the meet. Tyler didn't transfer schools or descend into bitter resentment, as many expected. Instead, he showed up to Monday's practice early, found Marcus stretching in his usual quiet corner, and stood there awkwardly until Marcus acknowledged him. "I'm sorry," Tyler said, the words clearly uncomfortable but genuine. "For the mocking. The names. All of it. I was a complete asshole." Marcus studied him for a moment, then gestured to the ground beside him. "Sit." Tyler sat, his powerful frame folding into an approximation of Marcus's cross-legged position. "You know why you lost?" Marcus asked. "Because you're faster than me?" "No, because you were racing me." "I wasn't racing you." Marcus picked up a water bottle, tipped it over. The water flowed out, spreading across the ground, finding every micro depression and crack. Water doesn't compete. It just moves. It doesn't think about being the fastest or the strongest. It just becomes what the moment requires. That's very philosophical, Tyler said, but this is track. Competition is literally the point. Is it? Marcus met his eyes. Or is competition just a framework? What if the actual point is discovering what you're capable of when you stop comparing yourself to others and start competing with your own limitations? Tyler frowned, processing. So, you don't care that you beat me? I care that I ran well. I care that I executed the movement pattern correctly. Your time was irrelevant to those goals. Marcus paused. You ran your personal best. That's worth celebrating. But you couldn't celebrate it because you were too focused on beating me. That's the difference. You were solid, hard, rigid, competitive. I was water, formless, adaptive, complete in myself. Over the following weeks, something unexpected emerged. Tyler started showing up early to practice, watching Marcus's warm-up routines with genuine curiosity. He asked questions, tentatively at first, then with increasing engagement. Marcus, surprisingly, answered them, his natural reticence giving way to the kind of teaching his father had always embodied. You're too tense, Marcus would observe, watching Tyler's form. You're fighting the air, fighting the ground, fighting yourself. What if instead of pushing through resistance, you reduce the resistance? The changes in Tyler were gradual but profound. His times improved slightly, but more importantly, his demeanor transformed. The aggressive showmanship mellowed into quiet confidence. The need for validation from crowds and cameras faded. He started eating lunch at Marcus's table. Just the two of them, plus Jamie, engaged in conversations about philosophy, movement, and the strange intersection of athletics and art. The social hierarchy at Jefferson High underwent its own fluid transformation. Marcus never became popular in the traditional sense. His inherent reserve and disinterest in social media prevented that. But he earned something perhaps more valuable: respect. The kind of respect that comes from demonstrated mastery paired with genuine humility. College scouts did come, drawn by the anomaly of Marcus's 47.2-second 400 meters. But when they offered scholarships, full rides to prestigious programs with Olympic-caliber coaching, Marcus politely declined them all. Why? Coach Morrison asked, genuinely confused. You could compete at the highest levels. With proper training, I have proper training, Marcus interrupted gently. And I don't need to compete at the highest level. That's not why I run. Then why do you run? Marcus considered the question, watching water from a drinking fountain arc through the air before returning to its source. Because running is meditation. It's the physical expression of mental emptiness. The moment you run for medals or records or validation, you've stopped being water. You've become ice, frozen into a shape that can break. At the end of season track banquet, Tyler gave a speech that surprised everyone, including himself. He stood at the podium, still broad-shouldered and athletic, but carrying himself with a fluidity he'd learned from watching Marcus. I want to tell you about the day I drowned, he began, ignoring the confused looks from the audience. I was standing on the starting line next to Marcus Chun, convinced I was about to win, convinced I understood what speed meant, what competition meant, what strength meant. And then the race started, and I drowned, not in water, but in my own ego. He paused, finding Marcus in the audience. Marcus taught me that being the loudest, the flashiest, the most aggressive doesn't make you powerful. It makes you rigid, and rigid things break. But water? Water adapts. It flows. You can't break it, can't stop it, can't defeat it. Because it's not trying to defeat you. It's just being completely, authentically itself. The applause was warm but confused, the audience not quite sure what they just heard. But Marcus, sitting in the back row with Jamie, allowed himself a small smile. After the banquet, as students filed out into the parking lot, Tyler caught up with Marcus. I never asked what you wanted, Tyler said. Our bet. I said if you won, you could name your terms. So, what do you want? Marcus looked at Tyler, This former bully who had become something like a friend, this solid thing that had learned to be a little more like water. Keep practicing, Marcus said simply. Not the running. The philosophy. Stay fluid. Adapt. Don't let ego turn you rigid again. He paused, then added with rare humor, and maybe apologized to a few more people. You left a trail of puddles behind you before you learned what water actually was. Tyler laughed, the sound genuine and free of the performative quality it once carried. Deal. And Marcus? Thanks for not just beating me, for teaching me why I needed to be beaten. As Marcus walked his bike, Jamie fell in a step beside him. You know, the whole school is calling that race legendary, right? You're basically a myth now. The quiet kid who destroyed the track star. It's got that cinematic quality. Myths are frozen stories, Marcus replied, unlocking his bike. Water keeps moving. So philosophical, Jamie teased. But seriously, are you ever going to compete again? College level? Olympics? Marcus considered this as he swung his leg over the bike frame. My father says that the highest level of martial arts is the fight you never have, the one that doesn't happen because your mere presence changes the situation. Maybe the highest level of speed is the race you never need to run because you've already demonstrated the principle. That's a very elaborate way of saying no. It's a very elaborate way of saying maybe. Marcus smiled, the expression rare enough to be noteworthy. The thing about water is that it goes where it needs to go. Sometimes that's downhill. Sometimes it evaporates and becomes clouds. Sometimes it crashes against rocks for centuries until the rocks become sand. You can't predict where water will flow. You can only watch and learn. And if Tyler challenges you again, Marcus's smile widened slightly. There'll be water again. Different water, different moment, different lesson. That's the point. You can't step in the same river twice. Every moment is new. Every race is unique. Every lesson arrives in its own form. As Marcus cycled home through the Connecticut suburbs, the autumn sun painting everything in shades of gold and amber, he thought about his father's teachings, his mother's discipline, and the strange journey that had brought him to this particular school, this particular race, this particular lesson. Being water didn't mean being weak. It didn't mean avoiding conflict. It meant being so completely adaptable that conflict dissolved around you, that force redirected itself, that the very act of attacking you became the attacker's own defeat. Tyler had tried to break him with mockery, only to break against his own expectations. The race hadn't been about Marcus defeating Tyler. It had been about Tyler defeating his own rigidity, his own ego, his own need to prove superiority through others' inferiority. And in the end, that was the real victory. Not the 47.2 seconds, not the shocked crowd, not the social media fame or the scholarship offers. The real victory was that Tyler had learned. He'd been transformed from ice into something more fluid, more adaptable, more human. That night, Marcus sat with his parents at dinner, telling them about the race, the aftermath, the unexpected friendship that had emerged from conflict. His father listened with the quiet attention of someone who had lived these principles for decades. You understand now, he said finally, that the race wasn't punishment. It was opportunity for him to see his own reflection, for you to embody the principle we've taught you. Speed without wisdom is just running. But speed as demonstration, speed as teaching, that's art. His mother smiled, squeezing Marcus's hand. And you maintained humility throughout. That's the hardest part, not letting victory turn you rigid. Marcus nodded, understanding the depth of what his parents meant. The temptation to gloat, to turn his victory into a weapon of revenge, had been present. But that would have transformed him from water into ice, would have made him the very thing he'd been teaching against. Be water, his father said, raising his teacup in a small toast. Today, tomorrow, always. The moment you think you've mastered it, you've already become solid. The moment you're sure you understand it, you've stopped flowing. Be water, Marcus echoed, the words both philosophy and prayer, both reminder and aspiration. Later that week, a video of Marcus's race went viral. Not because of professional editing or dramatic music, but because someone had captured the pure, shocking moment when expectations shattered against reality. The comments section became a fascinating study in human nature. Some people accused Marcus of cheating. Others demanded to know his training regimen. Still others debated whether his form was legal according to track regulations. But buried among the controversy and celebration was a comment from Tyler's account, posted 3 days after the race. I learned something that day. Being beaten isn't the same as losing. I was beaten in speed, but I lost my ego. And it turns out that was the thing worth losing. Thanks for the lesson, Puddle Boy. You're more like an ocean. Marcus saw the comment, but didn't reply. Words were just another form of solidity, another way to freeze a moment that needed to keep flowing. Instead, he simply hit the like button and moved on. Because that's what water does. It touches everything, changes everything, but never holds on. It's present completely, then moves to the next moment, the next lesson, the next necessary shape. And in a high school cafeteria in suburban Connecticut, where social hierarchies usually flow in predictable patterns, where the loud typically dominate the quiet, where aggression usually defeats gentleness, one unusual race had shifted the current, creating ripples that would continue spreading long after the moment itself had passed. Tyler never bullied anyone again. Marcus never ran another timed 400 meters. But the lesson persisted, flowing through conversations and decisions, changing people in ways they didn't always recognize until much later. Because that's the thing about water. By the time you realize you're drowning, you've already learned to swim. In your own life, when have you been rigid like ice when you needed to be fluid like water? What would change if, instead of meeting force with force, you learned to adapt around obstacles like Marcus did? If this story made you rethink what true strength looks like, hit that like button. It helps more people discover these lessons. Drop a comment below sharing your own Be Water moment, whether in sports, work, relationships, or any area where adaptability defeated aggression. And if you're ready for more stories about underdogs, unexpected wisdom, and life lessons that hit different, subscribe to Tales of Wonder. We're just getting started, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. See you in the next video, and remember, stay fluid, stay formless, stay unstoppable.